Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Non-Fungible News. As always, I'm Tricky Boom. Today, I'm delighted that we get to sit down with Wild Bill. Bill, you are out in the middle of nowhere, correct?
Absolutely. Like, I'm probably about as remote as you can get, without being in Kazakhstan or something like that.
So
We're actually pretty close, to tell you the truth. We're not too far away from that area.
Well, you're in Pacific time zone, so same as me, but you're up north in Canada, correct?
Yeah, in Western BC here. It's called the province is BC, British Columbia, and I'm about smack dab center of that province, right at you can see it on the map. It's like the biggest lake in BC. It's a hydrostatic dam.
So you are
It's pretty crazy, actually.
Off the grid. Your clock on your microwave that we see is powered by a generator. Is that correct?
To be honest, I came into the village to do this because our place is spotty as far as the internet, and I figured it was just better to come in. So I'm at my wife's. Backstory, just so where I'm at, I met my wife in Vancouver Island while she was going to school there. She's a First Nations lady from up here in this territory, and she met me and we hit it off, and we were dating and whatnot while she was in Victoria. And then she says to me one day, well, like at the time her mom was pretty sick with cancer, and she's like, I'm gonna be heading home to see my mom, and I want to live in a cabin in the bush. And I just kind of looked at her like, what are you talking about? Like, go live in the bush? And just for reference, my last name is Kickbush, so it's kind of funny, like I've always been an outdoors person. I've worked as a landscaper in Victoria, doing estate properties on beaches and stuff like that. Had the dream jobs in Victoria as far as not having to sit in an office and stuff like that. I have lots of really rich friends to drive around me. So it worked, and I was happy there. And then when she said that, all I could think of is, those Dick Koprnicki Into the Wilderness videos and stuff, where he just goes and builds his own cabin. I've always dreamed of that, but as if the women I was dating in Victoria were ever gonna live, go move into the bush or whatever, right? So adventure, within a week we decided we were going, and next thing you know, we were in the bush. But the trip itself, I think it's like 2,000 or 3,000 kilometers from Victoria, Vancouver area, all the way up to Prince George. And then once you're there, it's like another 2-hour drive on the highway straight north, and then you hit the Forest Service roads, so like the logging roads and stuff like that. And then we're like 470, maybe 500 kilometers in the bush, like all the way up the very top of the very end of the logging road. Basically, there's 2 communities up here, Seikidani and Kodacha. We call them Seike and Kodacha, or Fort Graham. These used to be Hudson Bay ports, like little establishments and stuff. The First Nations here, they were displaced when the hydrostatic dam came in. And so this is where they are now. This is where my wife grew up, and we're here now.
How long you been there?
I honestly thought we've been here 8 years now. So 3 years were spent in the village preparing, getting the house made and stuff like that. And then once we got the house made, we're out there for another 3, almost 4 years now. This will be our 4th winter. Pretty cool.
And you got snow?
We got like minus 50. Oh yeah, we're full in it right now. I just worked in minus 20. So thankfully the last couple of days it's warmed up. It's sitting around 0. So it's not so bad. In the morning it's like maybe minus 10.
Nice and
As soon as the
toasty.
sun goes, yeah, -10 is great, man. It's like balmy.
That's crazy. So you are probably the last person that anybody would expect to be even thinking about crypto and NFTs, but yet you're doing it. I mean,
Well, I've got a history too, right? So I've already pretty much had a heyday. I'm 45 now. When I was 18, we threw our first rave, and from there we were busting it. We were the thing in Victoria, Vancouver. We were part of the Tri-City West Coast music scene, the rave scene, the punk scene. As a promoter and basically promoting DJs and stuff like that, me and my brother, we were basically the kings of music for almost 20 plus years. Like if Kick Bushes were going to a party, most likely everybody was going to, because we knew how to have fun.
so
My brother plays music, so we knew we were artists early. Me and my brother didn't really jive with the system in the first place. City, we were raised as farm kids, really. Like we were small town kids that moved to the city, and then once we got to the city, we just ran rickshaw and had fun. Like during the 80s, there wasn't a lot of work, and then coming to the 90s, it was even worse. You had to make do for yourself, pretty much. If and Victoria was a really rich place. Like, it's newlyweds and nearly deads, and the nearly deads have tons of family money and stuff like that. So if you're not on that side, you got to figure it out, right? And so when the punk rock scene died, me and my brother saw an opportunity where there was a whole bunch of punk rockers who didn't have work anymore throwing shows, and they had all the equipment, and they were big guys that nobody wanted to mess with. So we hired all those old school punk rockers for security and stuff like that. Worked out pretty good. And next thing you know, we were throwing huge parties, big festivals. Friends of ours have gone on to throw Shambhala and some of the big West Coast festivals like Base Coast and all that kind of stuff. So, for me, I'm already well known globally, like Sasha, Digweed, Jimmy Man Bolligan, like all these guys know me by name basis, and what's funny is because my last name's Kickbush, it's hard to forget, like, so when people see me, they're like, oh yeah, that's that guy, but, all the time I was skirting being an artist, right? And I was just going hard, partying hard. I think the biggest party we threw was like 25,000 people, and then we went up to 80. Like Shambhala festivals, like pretty big, man. It's known around the world, right? We just became old schoolers that just went to wherever we got invited. And after a while, I just sunk into gardening and doing that kind of stuff. And I spent my whole life like regretting. In high school, I was supposed to go to Emily Carr, and it just didn't happen after school. And I just started going to parties, throwing parties, and just went the way it did. And I kept telling myself I was an artist. I spent a lot of time in the street doing graffiti and stuff like that, and spray painting and tagging and all that kind of fun stuff. And that just dissipated. And like during high school, I was drawing tons, and I had a full scholarship to go to whatever school I wanted to, and I just shrugged it all off. And next thing you know, my boss in landscaping, he's like, it's your 30s, he's like, do you want to do anything? And I'm like, well, I'm actually just sort of super bitter that I never got to be the artist I wanted to be, and I knew I could be. And he's like, well, why don't you go to school? And I'm like, as if that's gonna happen. And so over the next year, he basically just prepped me, got me ready, convinced me to do it. And my family supported me. And next thing you know, I was in art school, did 4 years of art school, had fun doing that, painted, moved into my own place, had my own business doing landscaping. Things were going really well. And then I met Ruby, and she's offering me to go live in the bush. And what artist wouldn't dream to just go live in the bush and do your own thing? Like, literally, like, for the anarchist I am, like, it's so brilliant, it's not even funny. And all I had to do was marry a grizzly bear, that's it. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Easy.
I'm really blessed. I feel really blessed. It's amazing territory. The people here have gone through so much, and I just feel so blessed and welcome. At first, I heard everything. I heard, just another white man coming here, and you get all of it, right? And then pretty much people just started treating me like family. And so it all sort of went a different way than if I just bought it, you know what I mean? And said, oh, this place is crazy. But I don't know, I think it just kind of suited my crazy ways. Like it settled me down. And for me, like I'm impulsive. If somebody says, oh, there's this big thing going on tonight and they give me a VIP pass, like, of course I'm going. Like for most of those years, my mainstay, like I got paid doing photography and stuff like that, event photography, DJs especially, they always need promo. So like I just learned to follow the money. The money was going to the DJs. And so then I was like, they're the ones with the money, not everybody else. Like, so I was trying to milk the crowd when the crowd didn't really have any money at that point. Everything had gone to other things, right? So I just started zeroing in on things. And so I did press photos and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And that was a fun time. Like the amount of photos I have them of just pure debauchery. It's like, but you know, you have fun. And so I did the freelance photography thing. I worked with a few agencies for a while too, basically doing, you know, what do they call those, model headshot basic photos for new models I want to apply to an agency or whatever. I did a lot of that. That was actually pretty good money. But yeah, photography was fun. And so then I moved up here and I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like, I don't have my studio anymore. You know, I don't have the place to go and paint and all that. And then I found out too, like how cold it gets here. And most of my acrylic paints, they all went buggered up south because I let them freeze to -50 and then the polymers don't stick anymore and all this kind of stuff. And you know, you run into basically the universe putting it to you again, just saying, yo, yeah, you chose the career. You're an artist. Like, what are you gonna do? Yeah, like, and that's why I laugh. Like people who say willfully that they love art and they are so glad they're artists. Like anybody I know is a professional artist just like laughs at that because nobody chooses to do this, man. Like you got to be some serious sadist to want to like put yourself through being an artist. Like I tell you that for sure, because everybody loves you, but everybody hates you. You know, you get to do what you love,
but it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, yeah, I guess some people would say I make it look easy. There are some people out there I think that just have natural talent, and you know, they have it in their genes. You know, like my grandparents, they were purveyors of art. They loved art. My grandfather was a master woodworker. My dad was a master carpenter. You know, in our family, we master things. It's like you do something and you do it good, really good. Otherwise, it's not. Why bother doing it? You know. And so, like, that's how I was raised. And you know, when I sit down to draw, I draw. I don't just whip off something in 10 minutes. You know, it's got to be perfect. I go through lines, I redo it. So now that, you know, ultimately NFTs in my mind were just another tool for us in the plethora of ways to make money as an artist. You know what I mean? It's a toolbox. And like the same thing with doing digital art, doing, you know, once I converted to having the drawing pad, having a pen that I could, and not needing paper. Up here, paper is a commodity. Like I used to spend $100 on a sheet of watercolor paper. And where am I supposed to get hemp watercolor paper in the middle of the bush? Like I just can't order it and have it come up here flat and nice and everything. You know, it's going to come in a tube all round up. And you know, how do you run a print business out of the bush? That one's harder too, because like if a print company wants to send you a whole bunch of prints and you got to sign them and then you got to send them back out on the plane just to get mailed from Prince George, you know, like, well, so you know, I had to start thinking outside the box, right? And my friends suggested looking into NFTs, and we artists, so I'm a part of a group called the Secret Society of Supervillain Artists. We basically support other artists and help protect artists, especially. You know, there's a lot of plagiarists out there, and basically we know our work and we all know who we are, you know, we know our peers. Even if other people don't know, this day and age, you should expect that us artists do know our own peers, and we do know the work that they do. And eventually, people will be looking, people will see it, and it's better to take your time and just do it. I think that's why I'm surprised the derivative art really makes it. This is where it brings me to, what I confronted when I came on to blockchain and just the concept of it. I was like, this is weird. Like, none of this stuff, like, this is like base cartoons that you'd see in the Times or whatever, like I could do it like that, no problem. I could whip you out of 50 million different styles of koala or whatever, it'd take me 25 minutes.
Well, so
what are you paying for?
That's what it does. A lot of artists is what it seems in this NFT gig, because everybody's kind of after the collections, the PFP collections, and we've seen the pixel versions, we've seen a little bit everything, but it seems like all the quality artists are starting to kind of rise to the surface, and it's not so much it's not just about any old 10,000 piece collection of whatever anymore. It's people without an eye for art are gaining that eye for the art and are appreciating what a good artist can do. Where 5 years ago, I didn't care about art or artists or anything of that nature.
Right.
I've done woodworking for a lot of years, and so I cared about my own woodworking as art or other people's woodworking, but when it came to drawing and hanging pictures on my wall, no, that just wasn't in my in my wheelhouse. But now I'm gaining an eye for that. And it may be different than the stereotypical uppity house with their paintings on the wall. My eye for it is a little different, and I think that's the case with a lot of the world. I'm understanding more different cultures, more different people, and I don't know, it brings a whole new level of ness to the world, really. I mean, because I'm looking into your stuff, you're looking into my stuff, and everybody's trying to work together. And like you were talking,
and that's a hard thing,
like
right? Trying to get everybody to work together. Oh, that's tough, man.
Yeah,
I know how that is. Like, the experience with the rave scenes, like, you wouldn't believe, man. It's like corralling like 10,000 really super high cows. It's not easy. How do you get them all through there's the exit. You're supposed to go now. It's been 3 days. We were supposed to be out of here in one night. But you're right. Everybody's eye is different. And I think what it is there's been like a lot of eye opener for me coming into the market. I basically started on World of V, doing just my base art and stuff like that, and feeling what was going on, using that as a way to get my name out there, but also check out what everybody else is doing. Like what is the market, what do people look for, what do they want. You can't just ultimately say, okay, as an artist, I'm only going to do this stuff, and then I mean, you can. It just may sit in your house by your stove for the rest of the eternity. You just never know. But that said, I think a lot of it is over management of artists in some respect. I think artists just get frustrated in some circumstances. You can see it in the way that they work. I was saying earlier, I say you kind of get what you pay for when you're working with artists. Like, if you kind of run rickshaw all over them and get gripey over colors and things like that, it's just like, okay, so did you go to color theory class? Because if you did, then we can have a conversation about color theory, because I'm not going to put that color next to that color because it's not supposed to be, period. And people look at you and they're like, what do you mean, man? But it happens, it does. And I think there's a lot of sort of business people that are involved with a lot of the crypto projects early, and their mindset's just a little bit different than an artist, right? And so I think you're right. I think a lot of artists are looking to these platforms as a new way for us to actually shine, and I think the more artists like me find these platforms and we navigate them properly, the world's our oyster as far as that's concerned. Making sure that the investor in your work is happy is critical, for sure. And listening to what people want and listening to what the markets are saying for different things is definitely critical, you know. And I think spending time doing that and understanding that will definitely give you a little bit more ground to move. You know, I run on this sort of policy that like if you build it, it will come. And it always has worked for me, you know, because I really put crazy amount of attention to detail in everything I do, right? So, you know, in the end, I'm never too worried. You know, people are gonna like it. If I like it, you know, it's so, yeah, it's an interesting thing when you see artists that were either working on something, like they were involved with a project, and you can just see where like they just shut down. As far as I'm concerned, like you could tell, like it was just, okay, they stopped. They just gave up and they just said, okay, here you go. And whipped off a whole bunch of trades and that was it. And they were just like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm out. I've already given you like 6 different versions. It's over. Just pay me. You know, like I know exactly what they're saying. And like, I feel for all of them because, you know, I've went through that already in the process of learning. And I almost signed, me and my buddy now, Doc Holiday, we almost signed on a project where it wasn't going to be good. It wasn't going to be pretty because the people that were financing it had no idea about art at all. They didn't understand art at all. They didn't understand plagiarism, or that we wouldn't plagiarize ourselves, you know, to make them money. You know, it just was like, no, sorry. And then we just basically talked after and said, you know, why can't we just do this on our own? We have the concept, the idea, and how we would want to do it. So let's just work on this together. And we both agreed that, you know, we were never going to let the project or whatever we were doing get in the way between each other's own personal work or what we want to do or which direction we want to go. You know, and at a certain point, Doc chose to take his direction, which is fine. And, you know, it was an interesting curveball. It made me focus a little more and just basically look at the art instead of trying to figure out all the different pieces. You know, by then I'd figured out most of the pieces, what I needed, what I didn't need. And then I went from super complicated and I just let people tell me where it was too much. And then I just whittled it away till I got to a point where I was comfortable and I knew that it would work. You know, I think that's the only way really, is to overshoot and then be like, okay, I know what I'm doing here. I know what I need to remove and everything. And since then, yeah, it's been amazing. I've been working with Pauly TV. He's an amazing guy. He basically joined up with me I'm a horrible speller. I'm really bad at writing. So Pauly basically has taken over that chore for me, and with a lot of gratefulness on my part, because he basically isn't afraid to tell me to my face if he doesn't like something, or if he has an idea on, or he has some kind of other way of looking at it. He'll just basically be blunt with me and say what he needs to say. And I highly respect that. You know, it's what needed to be said, and I can sit there and be a crybaby over it, or I can move on it and just figure it out. And that's what we do. So I really appreciate his way of thinking when we have our meetings and stuff. It's just brilliant, you know, because he's managed to take my crazy concept and just sort of bring it all together into just a nice little shiny package. You know what I mean? And that's super brilliant for me. I love it.
So are you guys together like a full-on PFP collection, and it is called Sagas?
You got it. I guess a little bit about it. So what we've decided is, at first it was going to be 2 factions for the original mint, and it was going to be a random mint, so you didn't know which faction you were going to be a part of. And we realized, I mean, he's the one that basically forced me to realize that the biggest thing slowing me down was trying to figure out how to deal with a double mint at once. And as far as the art was concerned, I basically was going to be splitting, you know, 4 different characters into 2 equal parts. They had to be all unique. So then, like, how do you make one faction look different than the other faction and then also be the same guys that are on both sides? So then I was like, I got to think about this. And, you know, like I was working my brain and I just started moving on to other parts of the project. And that's what I do. So like if I'm working on a puzzle in my head on how the whole thing is supposed to work, that's when I just sort of run to something else, like build the web page, do whatever, you know. I basically just sink myself into one other aspect of the project so that I can think about or process what I'm trying to figure out art-wise. From there, we basically came down to, we're going to mint 1 faction, 2,000 lot, most likely. we're teetering between 1,000 and 2,000, but I'm kind of leaning towards the 2,000 just because we might have a sneaky idea right after too.
Awesome.
We may end up with people watching this interview will get a little alpha. You may end up in 2 factions. Let's just say that we may force the issue at after mint. So, we'll make the holders decide. It'll be interesting. We'll make a war.
Smell an airdrop coming.
We're gonna be doing some sneaks. I'm not so inclined on. I'll airdrop stuff as long as it's part of the PFP collect. Like how do you do that where it's the mint and then part of the PFP collection? And the other thing, so what I've noticed is I think a lot of it has come down to there's been this idea that you have to generate a lot of movement with like freebie airdrops out of your lot. And I think that just creates some confusion. And I also believe that that's kind of a business no-no. I mean, I understand maybe handing out 5 out of a collection or something, but if you're exceeding 100 or 1,000 even, if you've airdropped 1,000 pre-mint just because people have pre-requirements of being involved with other projects and stuff, those are gimmicks. You're falling for a gimmick. And what they're doing is devaluing the entire collection all at once. How are you supposed to go now and tell people that they have to pay when 1,000 people got free ones? I think I'll be doing some drops of art, Wild Bill art, and that's going to be the hype pre-mint, you know what I mean? And that's sort of where I made sure I had some 200-300 pieces ready, did some AI work, did some just cool stuff, and that way I'm not messing with the format of the mint or anything like that. And we get really fair. Everybody gets in. It's a faction-based collection. So this isn't the end of it, right? We're really going to be moving pretty quickly right after the faction drops. Once the faction drops, there is going to be involvement required. If a faction wants to grow and grow their wallet, each faction that comes out is going to have their own treasure wallet, and they're going to get to choose how that gets disseminated, what happens with it. Are they going to build and get residual income from some kind of metaverse or whatever? We're going to figure those things out as we go. But those things will be building. They will be getting a large portion of all the earnings from sagas. So the splits are going to be really fair. The factions are going to get a cut out of, the overall income that comes in through sagas. We have several different ways of looking at income. We are most definitely going to be doing merchandise. There's going to be some really nice merchandise. Just a little bit of a sneak on this one. Paulie's going to be writing our lore. So I've got a friend, one of my artist buddies, Dolk. He just came out with book package. It's a really great book. It's like the coffee book, art book style. It's not fully comic. We're looking at something like this. And basically what he did is he combined a print and a couple different kinds of merchandise inside with a really fancy book with the box, with the cover, with hard covers, all inside of another box. So me and Paulie were like, hey, this would be a great concept to really pull. So we've been working on the idea of basically creating this copybook lore book with all the art from the project as we go along, and we're going to be battling factions out, making them earn things and stuff like that. So the next step, once the PFPs come out, we'll be putting out packs like magic cards or hockey cards, and each one will contain a set of cards, and those cards will be parts of item sets, armor sets, but they'll be broken up. So say one, your Titan armor class for a specific character, you get one of those items, you're going to have to piece 6 or 7 of them together. So we're going to try to create a trading market with the cards, the upgrade cards. Once you have all of the cards together for one set, then you can have them burnt and made into one set card. From there, you can choose which PFP you want to put it on. Oh. And so that's where we're going to be looking at our airdrops and our alphas and all that kind of stuff. You basically retain the original PFP, but it'll now have like a cool, armored up guy that badass. I still got to work out the logistics on how we'll do the upgrades and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's the concept. That's the idea. And not only that, but there'll be, faction reward item cards in there too, like deluxe cards that random, real rare cards that basically, get a faction a set amount of something or whatever, like say they get 100,000 or 10,000 vet or put into the faction wallet, they burn that card as a faction, right? So, basically they're going to be able to make a holdings wallet, a treasure wallet that has a lot of different items that, they can then use later on. It's going to be fun.
Do we have a timeline for when you guys are going to be ready to launch the initial part?
We're getting close. So because we've made this focus on one faction, we've decided that we're not going to do one guy with a whole bunch of different traits. We have 8 guys coming, a minimum. We're aiming for 10.
Wow.
So I've already got basically close to 5, maybe 6 started. 4 of them are almost in the complete phase. They've got the full inking, and now I just got to go in and touch up some traits. And so each one will have its own trait set. So when the generation happens, it'll jump into the first set of files, and it'll pick between any one of those 8 or 10. And then once it's in there, it only gets those traits, those weapons. So we got like brute class. He's going to have big maces and, big ass weapons, big armor, all that kind of stuff. We've got like a gunner.
This is a very detailed collection for being so small.
Well, and that's the point, is I want it to be very hard and very undiscernible which one is actually the rank 1. I want each person who buys into my min to feel like they're getting something unique and special for themselves. And then if they just don't care for that one, they have a plethora of other really cool things to look for and pick from. Why only have 1 when you can have 8 or 10? The only reason is because it takes time. People are impatient, but I've got patience, and I'm willing to do the work. Now that we've got the idea and the concept, it's coming out really fast. And now that I've got the drawing pad set me back for a while. So then once I got it, I had to get used to it, and I had to figure out how it worked. Now that I've got it drawing exactly the way I would on paper, it's like game over.
We just got a couple.
Let's get over some questions here.
You got any final words for the viewers?
Yeah, be excited. Timeline, we're looking at either right before Christmas, most likely just after. We're looking at just into the new year. I've got 4, maybe close to 5 characters done. Once I get to 8, then we're going to decide if we're going to wait for 2 more, or by then it'll be 2. It's not too hard. It should be, but I'm basically aiming with 8. I've got all the folder setups and everything. All I got to do is fill the folders with the layers and stuff like that right now. So that's basically the process I'm at right now. So we're really looking at a close timeline, and I've been keeping tight on a lot of the information that I've been disclosing tonight, simply because I don't want to get too early, put people's expectations up, and then be like, well. So we decided that I figured that the interview was a good time to basically get us at that moment where we're really looking at close to finish line as far as our work is concerned. Like, my concept itself at the beginning, I think, was really over complicated. So I think the platform guys, the devs and stuff like that, were a little nervous of me at first, but I think once I get my work all packaged, put together, they're going to be, yeah, this is easy. Okay.
And let's
go.
on World of V then.
I'm open to all, what, basically my mind on it is there's advantages to all 3 for me as a project lead. I basically see all 3 platforms serving their purpose within my project. Obviously, VC is the top flagship for PFPs right now. And, if Fred and them decide that they want to mint us on there, that would be cool. Same with World of V. But, I think World of V has one aspect that I'm really looking at hard, which is our cards and our packs. They have a system already set up for that. They have the mystery box set up. So they're basically set up perfectly for that. The wallets are pretty much the same. If everybody's listing back and forth, it doesn't really matter to me who does it. And, I'm actually really encouraged and excited about what's going on with BMV too, Black Market and Murtaugh. I've talked with him a lot. He seems like a really genuinely good guy. He's trying hard. He's ran into some roadblocks, but basically I told him I'm here to support him if he needs help and he needs what he needs to get going and do what he needs to do. So there is another aspect to the project. We will be putting out Saga bills. I don't know if you see my wild bills. We are going to be incorporating those too. So we'll be doing raffles and other cool things with those, and they'll be like the Saga's currency rather than using like a coin. We're going to use those bills. Those will be PFP too. So, and I'm looking at BMV for the bills exclusively. I think I've got an idea for them too. So,
Oh, we got a lot.
but yeah, that's the three basic parts or components of the project: is the bills and the packs, and then the PFPs. So they all go hand in hand. And I kind of realized that if I throw this all at one dev or one team, it's going to be a difficult project to manage. And so I started really thinking about it, and I realized, I can utilize all three easily. There's no reason why I can't. So I think it should be really fun. And all the stuff is hand drawn. It's all coming from me. There's no derivative art. There's no, it'll make you think about, it kind of looks like that, or it kind of looks like that, or it kind of, but it's not. It's Wild Bill.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm really excited, and I'm really grateful that you had me on. It's been cool to be able to talk about it because I've been so busy with work and just being focused on building and getting it all ready that I haven't had a lot of time to do Twitter Spaces and things like that. And my connections up here are really bad for Twitter too. Twitter Spaces don't work for me for some reason. So this was a great opportunity. Really cool. I'm sure we'll have more time.
Oh yeah, we'll do it again. But yeah, that's all we got time
Sounds
for
good.
today. So be safe out there and stay warm.
Will do. It's been
0-degree temperature.
been a pleasure. Much love, bud.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Great. Have a good night.
You too. See ya.